in just a minute. Do you want to explain?
So
We have one thing before we start.
starting at 7 o'clock is Pooja Meyer Hour, and Pooja was recently killed in a car accident this past weekend. She was a recent graduate from the UHS, and so it's a student-centered hour to honor Pooja and support her family. That you are supposed to have chips and guacamole and wear a face mask, like a cosmetic face mask. We will not be wearing a cosmetic face mask, I have to say, but as a way our school board could honor Pooja, I have brought chips and guacamole for us all to share, so we could take a Facebook picture before we really get rolling and share it on the Pooja Meyer Facebook page. So come up, help us.
Come grab a
so we
chip
can get
and
a
we'll do
good
an audience photo.
Yeah, please do it. She's a great kid.
A giant selfie. Yeah, a giant selfie would be great.
Well, we could do that too, yeah.
Great.
So glad you did this. So glad you did this.
What's that?
Bring guacamole.
I wasn't going to comment.
I need some.
Yeah, we've done it. Oh, listen.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, do you want it on your phone or on your phone?
I think the selfie. Selfies are good.
Who has the longest arm, I think is the real question.
Sorry, I didn't make the guacamole. I know, this is so, I know. Well, I found out about last week.
That's right away.
All right, hold up, Dick, you gotta get a check. Okay, here's Pooja. Got it, I got a few. Thank you.
And keep eating.
No double dipping. Emily, can you hear us now? Okay, I have to turn it up somehow.
Okay. All right, so I'll call us to order at 7:02. We've got Emily, who is technically the chair, on the phone, but since that's not quite going to work with an audience, I said I would take over. So I'm Carrie Amadon. We've got David Scholes, Christina Naylor. I do have a sign-in sheet. We are supposed to keep track of who comes to these. There is a spot for emails. If I've already bothered you by email, you don't have to give me your email, but please give me your name. And you're in charge. Yep. All right. So the first thing we've got for the four of us is approval of minutes of December 5th. Any comments or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve the minutes of December 6th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of the minutes of, December 5th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none? Okay, first draft of scope.
I didn't hear more. But I didn't hear anything.
Emily, how do you want to handle first draft of scope?
Nuts.
Are you on speaker? Hold on, Emily.
Hold on.
There we
There.
go. Okay.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we had talked about actually compiling all our different kind of research, and so I put that on the drive, but it might make sense actually to switch it to say like, review that a little bit and then hear from other people's proposals so we can create a scope of work.
Okay.
What do you think?
So are you thinking move on to external supports?
Well, I mean, otherwise the first draft of scope of work is, it's in the drive, so we could look at it. It's your thing. The superintendent search criteria.
It's the thing I wrote? Okay.
Yep. Because I think that was, other people had kind of contributed by contacting people to come to the meeting, but there was no other kind of bullet points. People had, you kind of did a good job.
Okay.
So do we want to use that and kind of go over it? Has everybody seen it?
Have you guys?
I have, yes.
Okay. David, you've looked at
Just
it?
trying to pull it up.
Okay.
Okay.
It's on my computer, but.
So what's the best way to, I can sort of read it out.
That might be nice, and then if we map on other things to it, or if we have questions or something, I guess.
Okay. So just so everyone's clear on what we're talking about, it is a document we'll get onto the website. It was basically me going out and Googling things such as executive search or superintendent search, and then being, as we call it, inspired by search criteria that we found elsewhere, and I just cut and pasted and put it all together in one big Word document, and then tried to see where things overlapped. I took the wording I liked best, and so we start with, the overall premise is how will we, meaning us, or they, a hired consultant, oh, thank you. Get on there too. Do the following, which is grab the cord. Okay.
Size
This
13.
is
you don't put
truly
things in front
musical
of it.
chairs. I love it.
Flexible there.
There we go. You can't have my, you can't have my water. So there. Whose is that?
That's fine.
That's your student? Okay, so how will we or they review position requirements and interview, survey, and conduct focus groups to solicit opinions from various stakeholders with committee members, staff, parents, other elected or appointed community officials, and members of the community to help the superintendent search committee define the leadership needs of the school system, as well as the desirable characteristics of the future superintendent. Then I added a question, should we be looking 3 to 5 years out for our priorities in the SU? Emily, how do you want to discuss each point, or you want to discuss each part? Emily?
Sorry, I was talking on mute.
Oh, that's okay.
I was just thinking, I mean, because nobody has it in front of them and you did do the work, it might make sense to read, and then if there was stuff we wanted to talk about, great. If
Okay.
not, then maybe we'd like to hear from the consultants and see how things match up.
Okay,
Items.
okay. So any comments on that first point? Knowing that there's about 15 points.
I like that time frame.
You like that? Okay. The next point was advertise and possibly recruit. So that, again, how will we or they advertise and recruit to get the widest range of candidates? Do we want to recruit? Are they capable of that? Can they do national? And then as I was researching this, Education Week and School Administrators magazines were noted on some websites. So that was another point of, is this something we want to make sure we're covering? Next up is identify a pool of diverse candidates that are highly likely to be effective educational leaders in our community and have a demonstrated significant achievement in areas that we believe are priorities for our district in the next 3 to 5 years. Are we open to candidates who may not have pursued a traditional superintendent career track? During this phase, we need to establish appropriate timelines and create the application process. And again, either we or they. Assemble an approach that may include the identification of an interim superintendent and will include the identification of a permanent superintendent. Since we had discussed that last time, I thought I'd at least make a note of it, so it's part of it. Part 2, Do we need promotional materials for the district and the area? We, and again, we or they will need to send out, receive, and catalog all application materials, keeping in mind we do have to keep the Agency of Education in the loop. They might help us to determine confidentiality issues. What is public and when? What is private and for how long? Part 3, read and evaluate all completed applicant files. Conduct complete reference check, verify credentials. Assist the board in selecting final candidates to be interviewed. Can they create a rubric for analyzing each candidate's qualifications in relationship to the criteria developed at the outset of the search? Variations of the rubric will be used in the candidate screening process to evaluate interviews and to assist in reaching the final decision. And part 4, prepare the board for the interview process. Is there another rubric? How many rounds of interviews, which are public? How is public feedback gathered? We will need a group representing a cross-section of the community and staff. Schedule and coordinate the interviews, keep all candidates informed of their status in the selection process, and then the final choice. So comments, thoughts, ways to move forward? While I plug in.
I like it a lot, Carrie. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, would you say, so part 1, just if I'm categorizing it, because I know people are trying to hear a lot of information too, like part 1 is kind of like doing the groundwork so that we can actually have candidates apply. Part 2 is when people start applying a little bit, I mean, we said information on confidentiality, so I guess it's determining how we're going to deal with stuff when people apply, and then if we're going to present any promotional materials. I guess they fall in this category because we've been presenting them in the future, so we need to prep them. Part 3 is applicants, and part 4 is, part 3 is read and evaluate, conduct reference checks, assist board members, okay.
I think 3 is narrowing it down.
And interviews below too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Just
Okay, so 3 and 4 is interviewing and the whole processes that go around that. That can happen in tandem.
one just addition or change of focus. The describing the community and I can't remember exactly how it was phrased in the question, but I think that needs to be part of the groundwork to find candidates. We need to really sell the community as well to get people to want to come here, to understand what we're doing and why it's appealing and what we have to offer that's unusual or better than anything else they're going to find.
I think that's sort of, it's a wider scope what you're talking about, but promotional materials for the area, I think that kind of,
Yes.
it's along those lines that we need to be thinking about how to market ourselves and our schools.
And review position requirements, that's the visioning process we had talked about, just to be clear, because I know the community had mentioned that before, being interested in that. So I think that's where that falls, right?
I think it can, so I can certainly adjust this document to better reflect visioning process. We're calling it a community visioning process.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
So when I'm reading this, I feel like it's a single interview process versus, and maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse, but you know.
So part 4 did have the question, how many rounds of interviews?
Right.
And I guess I took that as a,
Okay.
if we have a consultant, maybe they can give us feedback on that. Most of what I saw online was at least 2 rounds.
I like the concept of 2 rounds too, because just you get fresh eyes on something too. And I just think it's helpful with something as important as a superintendent to really do a little more do a lot of vetting of the person and make sure we're really comfortable.
But two rounds for the committee prior to the focus group?
These would be interviews, so are you talking the visioning process as being the focus group?
Oh, I was assuming that there would, often in principal searches, the committee does interviews, and the final candidates are meet with different focus groups to get feedback. And the query was 2 rounds of interviews with the search committee prior to, and assuming there is, or there are, focus groups after.
So that would almost be 3 rounds.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thoughts?
I don't know. I definitely think 2 rounds. I think an initial screening process and then final candidates come in and run through the gamut.
Let me ask this. Initial screening process, is it just on paper or are there interviews?
Oh no, there's usually
Interviews.
face-to-face interview.
Okay, so there's round 1 interviews. I mean, talk me through it, because that way I think we're all clear on.
Well, I'll talk you through what I envisioned, and then we can hear from other people about what they envisioned. But I envisioned some format of a search committee doing a first round of interviews with a wider range of candidates. You know, coming through some criteria, coming up with maybe 6 to 9 good candidates, that would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And then narrowing it down to somewhere between 2 and 4, that we would put focus groups together and really see what hear from all sorts of different parts of the community. And the search committee would be working to a rubric that had been determined, so it isn't, there was some criteria on who's making that final round.
Okay,
And the initial round, actually.
okay.
So that's one way of looking at
So
it.
you start with, let's say we get lucky, we start with 25. We have a rubric to narrow it to 6 to 9.
Maximum, I'd say, yeah.
We interview, and then we narrow to 2 to 4, and that goes to focus groups. Is that where we're?
That makes sense. It's very similar to what we've done with principals, except for the review that was done in the district.
So, comments? It's really important that you visit the school district. Oh, very good point.
Yeah, I saw that in someone's, somebody I'm being inspired by had that, thank you, as well. It's not plagiarism, I'm just being inspired.
We're very inspired.
Also, when we're talking about the screening, oftentimes I think of the screening as phone, when you have especially if you have a lot of candidates, I wonder if you thought about having that, a search committee or some group of people who would, especially people have to travel and getting an initial sense of them, a briefer, perhaps a half hour or under an hour, and just get some very much more general questions to see who is still seriously interested in coming in for in-person interviews.
Peter, how many people did we interview by phone for the sustain? Was it like 12?
15 or 16
Yeah.
by phone, and then
Yeah.
6 face-to-face.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Okay.
But it was very effective too.
And about how long were they?
Half an hour.
Half hour?
Yep.
Okay.
And that was
did they all get the same set of questions?
Yes.
Like, so it's
Yeah.
very,
And it was
okay.
really, and that was plenty of time too. Yep. And the same person presenting everything and introducing everybody. So everything was the same for everyone.
Did they all get the questions in advance?
No.
No? Okay. This question?
I'm recording, so I can take it later.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay.
It's on TV too.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Other comments on this whole process? Robin?
Hi, could you just explain a little bit more what you were referencing about the rubric? I'm not totally sure what that means. To select from the applicants who would be the first round interviewees?
So a lot of these websites that I'm going on to get my inspiration have the concept of when you start, make sure you're creating a rubric that you can use to clearly identify what you're looking for, and then you can rank people and just say, I'm going to keep this really simple. We want someone who's 6 feet tall. And then you can just go through all the applicants and say, nope, he's 5'6". So if that's an attribute you want, you're going to be able to look and say, oh, they didn't meet it. So in the end, you can kind of score and say, we've got to go with the candidate and stay focused on the attributes we were looking for at the outset. Does that
And
help?
how are you coming up with what those attributes are?
Well, so that is part of the part 1 to figure out exactly what we're looking for.
So
And
that we would create that based on the visioning process. So if the vision is we want an experienced educational leader with 3 to 5 years experience either in principal or superintendency, then that's what everybody in the community really thinks is important for the superintendent, we would make that part of the rubric. So we wouldn't be interviewing somebody who had never had an educational leadership position, because this is really important to our community to have somebody with experience in the position. But we have not come up with a rubric yet because we haven't gone through the visioning process. So we're kind of laying out we're kind of visioning the visioning.
Curtis?
Right, and in the matrix, the attributes are weighted, so that educational leadership is your most important. Say out of 100, that might score 30. Experience, being multilingual might be, 15 points. If policy is something that you're really focused on, that might be another 15 points. But you assign points for each one of the rubric categories, and those are weighted. They're sort of relative to what you're looking for, what's most important.
Any other comments on this? Emily, anything?
No, I don't have anything more. I think this is a great start, and it kind of lays out things. And I guess I wonder, when we move on to the kind of consultants who've given us proposals, I think some of this will even be timelined a little bit, and we can kind of then talk further, if that's okay with everyone.
I think that's good.
I just want to say that I like the idea of maybe a first round being over the phone, as was done in Brattleboro, because it's less difficult and cumbersome to arrange, and then the second round could be a smaller group, which is just logistically hard to get that many people together and bring people in on one day, especially if people are coming from a place. So it seems like a good way to sort of
For them to meet us and us to meet them.
Yes, and just see,
And doing their own.
yeah. So
Okay.
it's like 2.5 rounds.
So phone round, search committee round, focus groups.
If we only have 6 candidates, then maybe it's not.
Right. Right. Okay, Emily, how do you want to move on?
So I guess the next thing is it looks like one who exists that can help us with the process. So we
Okay.
can start exploring that. I know you put it together the VSB thing on, or at least on the drive, and then there are a few people there, right, who have given us proposals. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yep.
Do we want to, I guess, see what they've proposed?
Okay. Do we want someone to walk us through it? Do we want to walk through it? What's the... You have hard copies?
And there are copies of,
Oh, is that the other one?
and there's also one from Windham's executive search
You want these to get
Education.
handed out now?
I'll make sure everybody will hear us. When we're done.
So how do we want to, what's the best way?
You did a nice job reading, you want to, somebody do it?
Are people there to present their proposals out, or do we hear from them perhaps, of like the outline, or what?
We could, it saves me from having to.
That's a great idea, Emily.
This is meeting number 3. I think we're going to be forced at the end.
So we need to,
So these, I think there are maybe 25 of those.
I didn't think
And these are, like people can come up and get these. These are 3 pages, not stapled because I broke the copier at this school district office. But there are 3 chunks, and there are 10 of those. This is from the New England School Development. I'm not sure what it is, but they basically, yeah. No, the DE is from.
And I don't have
Oh, which is all of them, because that might be easy to just pass someone has a visual there.
No, I should have printed that, or I did my left on my printer.
And just one request, if there are people who are going to be talking a little longer, if they could use the mic so I can hear them, or come up or something,
Yeah, maybe sit in the first chair.
that would be great, somewhere closer, because it's hard for me to hear the community members.
If we go that way. Curtis, do you want to start us off?
Emily, let's see if you can let us know if you can hear okay. Just talk to me.
Curtis is going to sit in front of you.
Jen, did you have a time?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Jen did have a time. I apologize. I
I have a
forgot.
family commitment, in fact, he's sitting in the hallway waiting for him. I'm really sorry.
Sorry about that. I did space on
I feel like I'm
Jen, can you come over here so Emily can better hear you?
Sorry.
And I'm sorry, it's part of
Having a kid.
having a family and a business. So does Emily have a visual?
Yep, I have it.
Great. Well, you don't have, I have just a little graphic representation of our process too, which you all have. So my name is Jennifer Jacobs. I have a local business called Thrive that provides human resource services and other employee supports here in Brattleboro to businesses that typically do not have their own HR department. And, but sometimes businesses that even have that ask for our help with recruiting because it can be such a giant process. So what I sent you, once you have the whole outline here, is our process in a nutshell, but what I took from the last meeting to try and show you how we might tailor it to what I heard you say your needs were. But our process is essentially, you outlined it very nicely there, Harry.
If you'd like to be inspired by it, you may have it.
And that's what this visual here is to try and capture, that there are these different phases of this recruiting process, and we, taken the scope of the whole thing from the get-go and try and anticipate what all the different individual needs would be of the business we're working with. What is unique about your position, your organization. So like when we worked with the town of Brattleboro, it became really clear that we, especially round 2 of recruiting, that someone was likely coming from out of the area. And that's similar to here, you might be having someone come from out of the area, and this idea of how do you show them this is a great place, to live and to work. We have done this with a number of different types of businesses and never in education. So I'll be upfront with you, we have not done an educational leader search. But our process can be tailored to any kind of search. And I think one of the strengths, I actually brought one of my colleagues with me because I have to leave early, is that there's a team of us doing this, and we're really good at research. And so I sent, I think, is it in here, I just briefly, did a quick search of where would I go. What I like to think of is once the community, once the stakeholders have decided, what are the, like you said, the attributes of who we want, I think, where is this person? How are we going to get in front of this person? Where are they looking? If they're not looking, how are we going to get their attention? And so we do a lot of research about how to market and how to find that person and get in front of them. We've done it for other leadership positions, for nonprofits as well as for the municipal typical one here, and it seems to be a process that works well in finding and attracting people, thinking out of the box. You know, we could still post and, you know, and do some of the traditional ways, but also thinking more creatively about how this person might be found. Also, just briefly, because I know that there's other folks who want to speak here about this, the part about soliciting the stakeholder input and what's unique here, you know, there's always a piece of that. We're saying, well, who is going to be impacted by the person in this position? And we want to hear from those people about what will make that person a strong leader, person in that role. And so that could happen, that has happened a number of different ways. And what I'm hearing here is, like I said, the surveys, the forum, and all that stuff that we also do in other capacities. We do employee surveys, we have focus groups for other reasons. So we're used to facilitating that. I guess I just think of that there's a lot of different skill sets to bring to this process that I've heard come up as needs that you have. So I don't know if you have, I don't, you know, if you all have questions. I don't really know how this works. Do you all have questions? Like, we are working through it ourselves. Do you have questions?
Not really questions, just that I mean, you know, you came up with those 4 categories that we seem to be included. Pretty much the same things in 7 steps that seem pretty thorough and identify the places where you can provide support. So it's very much in line with what we were finding.
Yeah, this would get more detailed. This is, you know, the rough sketch as we got more information. You know, if you wanted to work with us, the first step would be sitting, you know, getting more specific. And this is the timeline. I don't even want to look at that. That's so constricted. You know, I was working on the idea of trying to get, you know, not be hasty, but keep it all rolling. And that does limit how many rounds of interviews you can do. Those are very time consuming. And so I have 2. So if you're talking about 3, that might push us. Right. So if we think even a month, another month, if it could be April 1st, you know, and I think that if you, my suggestion would be, whether you know you work with us or not, is to shoot for. We're looking for the person, and to have them accept the position by April 1st. And along the way, we'll discover, you know, we'll probably have some hints about, are we getting there? Or do we have someone's? Or do we need to start thinking about the plan B? And I wouldn't say not to think about plan B and having an interim concurrently, but I think that, I guess I would not, given the importance of this position and the leadership that I've heard from educators in particular say, and educational leaders, an interim, we really hope not. So I think if you can try and extend your deadline a little bit, that gives you some room to have this really thorough process.
So I have a question. So is it typical, as I think you worked with the town first, that's my first question, correct?
Yes.
Am I correct in assuming that? Okay. So my question then is I noticed on the timeline it says like January 27th initial interview, and then you know, the offer isn't made till March 2nd, so it's typical that it's about a month of interviewing process. Is that like standard?
So the initial interview, the phone screenings, what I often have done is we accept, you know, there's not a cutoff deadline, so we're just continuing to accept folks. I think we did phone interviews maybe twice, Curtis and Peter I'm looking at. So, you know, we kind of said, okay, here's batch 1, let's do the phone screenings with them while we continue to accept more. And then, okay, here's batch 2. And then we started to also schedule in-person interviews. So it was all kind of happening on a rolling basis a bit.
Okay. But that's fairly easy. I mean, I guess because candidates might be coming from out of town, 1 month is probably, I mean, you need to schedule them a week or 2 in advance so they can make travel arrangements and stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I also was curious about the timeline here, because unlike in a lot of other industries, this is the schedule is the same for every person who's looking for a new position and getting hired. And I know with principals, when we were hiring principals, there was a concern that the person would take another offer if we liked them and didn't make an offer. So to have the in-person interviews be in the beginning of February and then not make the offer until a month after that, I would really be concerned that we might lose out on the candidates that we wanted.
And this is very rough, so this is not like something I'd say would be set in stone about that, and I think that they also, like you said, they're also evaluating, and if you have, I think some of these details will be figured out as you go and see how big your candidate pool is and how much time you have to allocate for that. There are ways to stay engaged with people too, and I think that's important to keep in mind, is that there's, especially when there's a committee, that there is a point person who is keeping these people, you know, the candidates engaged every step of the way. And if they know what the timeline is, and they really want to come here, then they also can try and, you know, navigate that themselves. And that's part of everything else that we've talked about creating a really comprehensive, engaging process for them to be a part of.
Other questions?
So I'm just going to add on to Robin that March 17th, half the seats are potentially up for change on the board. So if it's not going to happen, and then the board has to reorganize, and so if it's not going to happen by March 17th, and we should just have that in mind as an issue that it's going to impact if people are on a committee and then they're no longer here and positions change. That's somewhat
It's going to be disruptive.
It's not ideal.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Oh.
I have more of a process question, and clearly it's just me getting up to speed. How did you know to come with this, to this, I mean, it's a very well laid out proposal. I'm just, how did it come to be that you were so well prepared?
I was invited.
I
Okay.
also came to the first meeting.
I came
Right, I
in the first meeting.
just wasn't clear that at this meeting, proposals would be presented.
We're looking for anything.
So
I mean, we know we've got a short timeline, so this was everybody's talking to anybody they know saying what's out there. And so we've got a couple others that we found online, and it was, can you come?
Yeah, I got the notification for the first meeting, and I came to see, you know,
Right.
what's going on, and then I came to David after. I said, I can help you with everything that you said you need to do. What do I do about that?
At the end of the meeting, we basically said, we'll remove the Curtis and Jen off of these services, so asked me to contact them, and to, we had some other proposals from other people, basically, and Carrie was going to do this work, and we're going to see what we
The,
can find out.
the VSBA has a
Yeah,
proposal
actually, you
guideline, so.
did a pretty broad statewide search about that as well.
Yeah, I just, as I say, just trying
So just like
to catch
come
up
up with a
on
proposal, we're just trying to be inspired
how
by
who
it.
gets chosen to help you to present.
Other questions? Then we'll let you go. That's okay, thank you, thank you, we got it.
If you have any other questions, I mean, put Alyssa on the spot, but if you have any other
But
questions.
there she
Okay,
is.
There she is.
There we go, there we go.
Stay. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right, Curtis, we're back on. Sorry about that. All right, Curtis is up now, Emily.
Did somebody have his in digital form or no? I can just listen.
I can send it to you, in digital form if you want.
I think she'll have,
that'd be great.
yes, she'll have it seconds.
Okay.
Anyone know her email?
It's,
Well, it's- I can't remember.
I'm going to write it down.
Thank you.
Says Emily Wood. That's three of them.
Curtis, do you have copies or no?
Yes, I do have a couple of spare copies here.
Oh, we should get
It's okay.
so we can post it on the website. Or post it in the minutes. Oh, yes, perfect.
So where are these getting?
People that want to look at it, maybe come up on our email. And this is one.
And then we'll take everything electronically and get it on the website,
Okay.
on the SU website.
Okay, great. That's
Yeah,
what
we'll
I
do
was-
all these.
It's kind of awesome.
can do it tonight. No, we can. Or we can.
I guess I need to get online.
Oh. I could,
I don't have my phone, so I can't.
oh,
It's okay, guys. I can also just listen. I feel like I'm delaying.
Christina's gonna take photos and send them to you.
Oh,
Okay, perfect.
There we go.
That's a great idea. You
great.
guys are innovative.
Christina is.
Great.
Thank you.
So, our work really revolved around making Vermont the model of inclusive thought and practice in the United States. That's just our 30,000-foot mission and vision statement. But relative to the work that's relative to the school board, in terms of recruiting, we have been quite successful at making sure that candidate pools are diverse, both in terms of race and gender and LGBTQ. For example, Burlington Police Chief, 8 of the 20 cutoffs were law enforcement executives of color. 3 of the final 4 were of color, and they chose to keep Americans to be chief. We totally retooled the recruiting process for Vermont State Police. Yesterday, I was doing training at the academy. 6 of the 10 new troopers are women. And for the last 10 or 12 classes, upwards of 15% of the candidate pools of the troopers coming in were of color. In the town of Bennington, we helped identify a vendor who was multicultural in nature to do the audit for the police department. So we provide value added to your existing sort of operations. We work really well with Jen, with the town, and it's really going through promotional materials, through documents, through job descriptions, to fashion in a way that would be attractive to candidates of color. We also have an extensive outreach strategy in terms of where you post your ads that would attract your folks of color, for example. So give an example of, this isn't our example, but an example of there were 2 sort of engineering firms, one in Northeast Kingdom and one in South Burlington. And they both needed mechanical engineers. And Northeast Kingdom had more mechanical engineers than it needed, And the reason was because they were publicizing in mountain biking magazines. When we worked with state police, we said, we need to develop a long-term relationship with the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. You need to get your message out for outdoor recreationals of color, be they hikers or skiers or motorcyclists, or as well as your traditional sort of affinity groups that are in the education field. But it's really about getting your message out to a wide audience that would say, oh, we picked up this job announcement off of a Facebook group dealing with blacks that love Jimi Hendrix. So the outreach strategy is really going to places where we know and where we have agency to post about the job. Another thing that we do is we spend time with the board and the interview communities around understanding implicit bias and how implicit bias affects your decision making, how it pops up in interview questions, how it pops up in the hiring process. So in fact, that's where we were proposed to start with that level of training for the board for this particular committee. So that as you go through the rest of this process, you can begin to think about, I really hadn't thought about that, or gee, this decision I'm about to make is coming from a cultural perspective that may in fact inhibit candidates of color to assume this will be a desired destination. Another aspect is, which Jim sort of touched on, is most likely going to, certainly for candidates of color, moving outside the borders of Vermont. So how do we make this? I took some typhoid medication, which is having an effect on my breathing at the moment. But there is, so how do we make this an attractive destination? How do we pitch southeastern Vermont as a desirable destination for candidates of color? And that's another piece that we really worked quite diligently with state police. And the reason why their numbers are as high as they are is by virtue of the fact that they've learned how to sell Vermont. We've taught them how to sell Vermont in a way that's attractive to the athletes, because you need someone who's nice or fit and healthy, in line with 40 pounds of gear for a mile. Or those that are concerned with law enforcement or that just want to get out of the rat race of the city. How to make those pitches, both in terms of written word, but also in terms of presentation, that would bring together a diverse candidate pool. And we work with the interview committees. Again, every touch point where the candidate sort of meets the towns, we need to have some sort of training and orientation around our lives. We're often part of the triage. The triage in terms of the candidates coming in. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. In some cases, it's a check on the bias. There's a room with a hiring committee for a state position, and there were two equally sort of qualified candidates. One was white, one was black. But the conversation in the room was, well, what would the black candidate do in Vermont? And we totally overlooked the fact that he was the chapter president for the National Brotherhood of Skiers in Buffalo. But because there are people on interviewed me who didn't associate skiing with black people, that we had to pull that sort of out of the conversation.
Questions? So, what would you envision as a timeline for being able to, this approach would require a little more training, a little more investment, and worthwhile to be sure. Do you have a sense from doing it in the past about kind of the timeline this would
If everyone was available, we could get it done in 3 months. And we were, and in fact, I would recommend a pairing with Jen, because we've worked together before. And all those sort of the technicalities of sort of the hiring process, we provide the value added in terms of making sure there's a diverse pool, making sure that the organization is prepared to work with that diverse pool in a way that is welcoming and feels as though they are totally welcome. And this would be a preferred destination over someplace else.
So when you said 3 months, you meant for the entire process?
Right.
Yeah, not to train the board and.
Right.
Because
But start to finish.
would come first, yeah, and then
Starting the committee, starting the board, training committee, through everyone.
We're here pretty much every day, it seems so.
We're in another of these buildings.
Okay. All right.
I've written it down for this.
So Mondays, we're here in the morning.
So the next 2 weeks now, but any time at the beginning of the year. Yeah. But again, that is, because the training piece is so critical to address that. It is like the first step in the journey.
Questions? Emily, any questions?
Not at the moment. I mean, I have, not at the moment.
Questions from the audience?
Or comments?
Or comments, that's right. It doesn't have to
So
be-
Curtis, I'm just curious, have you, I know you and Jen have collaborated before. Have you, have the two of you spoken about this potential collaboration?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we work in a collaborative sort of fashion, and where she's, yeah. So.
No, I could see, I mean, the reason why I asked is I see some similar and varied skill sets between the two of you and your organization. So I could see that there could be a nice kind of pairing, because I think what Vermont Partnership brings is the equity diversity lens and this the history of having worked with organizations that are looking to really expand the pool and to really think about who they need to reach out to. And as I look at Jennifer's, is that her name?
Yeah.
I see some real strong supports around like an actual like logistical plan and some details. So I was just thinking that would be an interesting pairing to bring those two skill sets together. Can I ask one more question? Or maybe it's more of a comment. I was at the first meeting, and I did hear at the end of that first meeting there was some conversation about the possibility of bringing in someone like Curtis or Jennifer to support the process. And it also occurs to me that I don't know if that was made sort of public, or I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to say, except that I want to support the board in just really making sure that all of the efforts and actions that are taking place are very transparent, so that it doesn't appear that there were a few people who got the information about potentially submitting a proposal, and then some people didn't get that information. So I just in the spirit, I'm not sure if it wasn't transparent, but I just think in this small community, it's just important to make sure that every move you're taking is really transparent to the public. Does that make sense?
That's why we have the TV here.
Yeah, no, that's good, and that's great. I just, again, and it was only because I just thought, oh, I wasn't sure if I heard that, and if there were potentially other folks who had wanted to and maybe felt like they didn't get the information in a timely fashion. So that may not be the case at all, but I just wanted to notice that.
I guess I'll follow up that one of my responsibilities, one of my things that I volunteered to do was to ask around the state to find out how other people had found superintendents, and I did that, and so
Great.
trying to contact anybody who's done it around here and talk to people who've had success. So
Yeah, sure.
And that is really the proof in the pudding. Is the first people that were presented to us came as a success story from the town of Brattleboro.
Right.
And there's a case where I know the reference person is going to give me an honest reference.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so that's very
Yeah,
helpful.
absolutely.
I've gotten some other recommendations of other.
Yeah.
other
I just,
places.
I say this because it feels to me that there is there's high stakes here. So I'm not saying anything people don't know. So I just want to support I just want to bring my observations forward to support from where I'm sitting as somebody who is, certainly invested in this, but is not directly involved in the school district, or I don't live in the community, but just sharing some observations. Yeah.
Did your research take you to Rutland and to
Bennington.
Burlington?
The Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union, yes, I did.
But the town of Rutland, the city. of
I was
Rutland.
looking in among people that have done superintendent searches.
This is a
So,
bunch of school districts in Rutland, and there's one in Bennington.
Which one did, I was going to say, which
because I have the Bennington-Rutland, they're looking for a new superintendent.
Oh, maybe that was one. But this is just for the city of Rutland. I think there are 2 districts.
Oh, so
Yeah.
maybe nobody gets to split anymore. So there's a couple different SUs that are going through the process right now and have done it pretty recently. Bennington Rutland is using the VSBA. Washington Central.
Mark Andrews, search
Mark
consultant.
Andrews.
Is
So
he?
check with the city of Burlington, who has a black superintendent. He's been there for like 3 years now.
He's just resigned.
He just resigned. So you just want to make the mind. But the question is, to the board, how to go, how to.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And maybe they will keep the process to have more, to have diverse candidates. And then part of the challenge for here is, given that the Rutland and Burlington are in the mix, how do we make southeastern Vermont far more attractive than either of those 2 areas which have those same advantages, particularly Burlington?
Yeah.
But we can compete with that.
I like your spirit. Yeah, Mark Andrews is a retired superintendent, and I could not contact him directly because he doesn't actually have a business yet. He's just
Okay.
he's done 2 superintendent searches, and I think both he's come recommended. He was
Okay.
a former superintendent in Essex. But he also has 2 superintendent searches going on right now, so I don't know, that might be a lot, but anyway, those are the options I found, the VSBA and this Mark Andrews. And then Windham Northeast found a superintendent pretty recently, but they're all trying to remember who they used and go through their notes, and so I've contacted 3 people, so they've all referred me to someone else.
And we put this out on our network. And just off the top of mind, there are 3 individuals who would be really, I think, useful in promoting this within their network. One is a former Secretary of Education for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Another is educational analyst, who's a professor emeritus for Rutgers and education as well. And there's also a retired black superintendent already in the state that would not be coached out of what they're doing, but does have a network that we have access to. And again, we throw our net wide and see what it turns out. But I can tell you the SBA doesn't have those resources.
Mark, did you have a question?
Oh, I was just gonna, those folks that you've identified, Christina, have they expressed some interest in a proposal?
I have not contacted him for a proposal yet because I couldn't get hold of Mark Andrews. He's just like a guy. He doesn't have a company at this point. So the former Essex superintendent, I think retired a year ago, so he's just kind of doing this. I know he turned down somebody else because he didn't have time, so I'm not sure if he would have time to do that. So it's on my list of things to do when I'm not at a meeting. And then I have not contacted the VSBA at this point to ask them. They're the next.
I think an educational leadership lens is really important as well as everything else we're talking about.
Yeah. Their proposals are actually boilerplate, like I can get it on the web and their price is set, so we already have their proposals, so it's like contacting them is a little, they're down a person right now, so the person who's doing their superintendent searches is now the executive director, so instead of 3 sort of directors there, they have 2 and they have not hired a position yet, so it's a little,
Do most districts, Christina, in your research, do they usually use the VSBA, or because it doesn't sound like there are a lot of consultants out there from what you just said?
most people have not been using the VSBA that I have spoken to.
Okay.
So I found 2 that, that isn't, there's no one that's, I found 2 that are using Mark Andrews, and this is all in the last couple of years, so there's not that many superintendents that are changing at any given time. I found 2 that are using Mark Andrews. I found 2 that are using VSBA. And then Windham Northeast is using, use somebody in Massachusetts. I think it might be.
Is it these guys?
I think it's these guys. And somebody else was using these guys, this NESDEC, whatever that company is, so.
Do we have more questions for Curtis, just so we keep moving things along? Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Emily, do we want to walk through the VSBA?
I think that'd be nice just because you did the research on it, or at least you uploaded a little proposal, so
Yeah.
just to be even keeled.
So the VSBA does, I'll read this. Successful education systems depend on exceptional leaders. Hiring of a superintendent is the most important decision of a board. The VSBA is pleased to provide comprehensive superintendent search services to assist boards in this all-important endeavor. The VSBA will work with the district to identify an experienced search consultant to guide the entire process. Throughout the process, the board sets criteria and retains control of key decisions, with the VSBA assuring that a healthy process is established and facilitated, and key details are completed in an effective and timely way. Their search services include, and I think I was inspired by this, facilitation of all essential tasks, working with the SUSD board to organize a projected timeline, budget, screening committee selection process, and screening committee charge. Assisting with the development of a community needs assessment, assisting with advertising through various media resources, developing screening committee meeting agendas and interview schedules, assuring effective communication with all applicants, guiding the screening process, organizing the reference check process, manage semi-finalist and finalist visits to the community, coordinating the search process with the Secretary of Education, when requested, assisting the board with the development of a goal-setting evaluation session. So let's see. The VSBA knows Vermont education. We know the complexities of the Vermont system. They are often connected with the board through other supports and services and can quickly get up to speed in moving forward with an effective process. The VSBA has countless connections within the Vermont education community, which can help in assuring the best possible match between the needs of a district and the strengths of a particular candidate. So we've got that. But, oh, yeah.
Simple question here. Sean Murphy, the word board has been sort of bounced around a lot, and so because there are two boards, the WSESU and the WSESD, it hasn't been clear to me. I think that the WSESU is actually the board that will hire the superintendent.
That is correct.
Will the, I think I asked this the last time too. Does the WSESD have a role? Because Christina has just spoken about the election and how the complexion of the board might change. But does that only matter because that complexion might change the WSESU board?
I guess my answer would be yes, because the Vernon board could change. We've got seats up. The SD has seats up. So if those are the people sitting on the SD board, we've got a new board.
But it would reconstitute all the assignments anyway after the election. So,
But it is the SU board that is the body that hires. Although I would expect in our process, we would be inviting everybody on the Vernon board and everybody on the full SD board to be in the room. Which is why I think I invited you, because I just blasted everybody an email to anybody on any board, regardless of whether it was SU.
Maybe if there would be a clarification of what the role of the SD board will be in this whole process.
And the Vernon board. Okay, so that's something we can certainly look at. I would expect, and Emily, I don't want to answer for you, but I would expect we're all on that they should be a part of this as community should be, as staff should be. So they would be stakeholders.
I think maybe when people mention the board, they, just say WSESU to make clarity of that. Otherwise, there are too many boards. I mean, even the BSBA just mentions the board without specifying which board it is.
NASDAQ. How did that?
Andy usually gave you that, gave you that, and then the website's on there, I call them up and send me a little description of the different layers of things that they do with the price range sheet.
Okay.
And I didn't have time to cover everything.
Okay.
But we're not that far away.
Right. So we also have this NASDAQ. They are, I consider them local because they're in Marlboro, Mass. So they're not that far away. Do you want me to read a few things from this?
oh, there's paper.
Oh, there's paper, but I'll still read. Okay.
And chips and guacamole. I can't. Chip, guacamole. You're doing it for Pooja and her family.
So NASDAQ has been assisting school districts with executive searching since 1982. They offer 4 levels of executive search. Okay. Comprehensive search covers active recruiting and all essential tasks involved in a search. Includes the search services most often requested by school boards and committees. It includes an experienced search consultant, timeline development, advertising campaign planning, active active recruitment through NESDEC's exclusive regional and national network, community needs assessment, assistance in screening applications, assistance with initial interviews and finalists, management of all search details, ongoing communication with board committee, entry planning, governance retreat, or executive coaching. Another level that they do is a guided search, includes the use of an experienced search consultant and a choice of search components from the below list to complement your district's search activities. They do search outreach, which is to enhance the district's own search activities by publicizing the executive vacancy through NESDEC's exclusive regional and national networks. This is a good option, they say, for small districts and also building level administrative openings. They do strategic leadership search, which is a custom designed search which includes all the services in a comprehensive search, plus a team of experienced executive search consultants, extensive nationwide recruitment, options such as development of strategic targets for use in subsequent superintendent board committee planning, expanded national print media advertising campaign, internet promotion, polychromatic booklet style brochure, promotional CD or DVD, expanded on-site needs assessment, including focus groups with an electronic participation component, personal electronic stakeholder, interviews, web conferencing opportunity, community forum, internet survey, and intensive personal interviewing. So they have assisted school boards with executive searches for over 30 years. They've completed over 450 searches. They have a regional organization with strategic linkages to national groups. They've done research work with both the American Association of School Administrators and the National School Boards Association. They value a district's affiliation, so they are highly motivated to do the best search possible. And they have search staff assigned to each New England state. Okay. What else? Who else?
Do we have any notion of the cost on this one?
You said you had a cost. Did you have a cost on this?
Yeah, from $12,000 to $20,000.
12 to 20?
What was the BSBA's price? And I didn't see Thrive's price either. Does anybody know?
Yeah, Thrive is 15% of the offered salary, or $125 an hour if you don't want the whole package. And the SBA is, I think it's $10,000 dues and then $6,000 for the service.
$8,500.
85 for the service on top of the 10,000 dues?
Yeah.
And then that's if you're a member. And then if you're not a member, I think it was 12,000.
That was 12.
Yeah, 12 if you're not a member, yeah.
So it's either dues plus 8 or it's 12?
And can you repeat the price for NASDAQ?
12 to 20.
12, okay, 12. Okay, thank you.
So we've got Thrive, this, the SBA, NASDAQ, and then, I'm sorry, were both of these Mark Andrews, or who was Bennington Rutland?
Yeah, Bennington Rutland is the BSBA.
BSBA, okay.
OSSU and Washington Central are Mark Andrews. I think he was around $5,000 or $6,000.
Okay.
I did get the money.
You did get the money. Okay.
Sean Murphy, again, as long as we're talking about money, isn't there a process in this whole thing where you actually bring candidates from out of the area? I think sometimes in the political searches and so forth, there's actually transportation pay and then accommodation once individual comes. So just looking ahead, in terms of, we're talking about finance, That's another thing.
Also, the advertisements are not included in these. If it's $500 for every form, that's
So
they don't pay.
maybe we ought to have a spreadsheet, maybe on all the numbers.
Not tonight.
You know, the offering amount, the transportation, all the various things. I'm going to do that for the cost of research. And that would be on the budget that we looked at last night, WSESU budget. So,
We're deficit
For next
spending,
year.
we're deficit spending this year, but I don't think we have a choice in that matter, so.
No,
Right.
no, but it's just good to
Yeah.
keep.
No, to know what
You
we're
know,
doing.
I know what the outlay is, and, you know.
I would suspect that most of these people could also give us an idea of what to expect in terms of what the advertising is going to cost, and so that they can help us put together a budget
Yeah.
more formally, but once we commit to working with someone. So we might have to do it, so we might have to do this cost piecemeal, I think, as an SU, and say, okay, we're going to hire the search, and then we're going to come up with the budget for the search in addition to whoever's going to help us out for advertising and transportation and everything else. You know, showing them a great time in Brattleboro. Let's see, it'll be we'll have the ski jump, Harris Hill. That's what we can do.
Ooh, that timing could work out perfect. Emily, what do you think we move on to next?
I mean, we had the next step in timelines. Like, I mean, we got some of the timelines laid out, at least if we were working with consultants, but I guess I'd like to know from everybody, like, are we thinking we're going to explore more consultants? Are we thinking, like, I guess temperature check, like, what are we expecting? Because the timeline is so short. Like, like, for example, if we look at Jennifer's timeline, even if we didn't go with Thrive, but, like, let's just say the timeline. I mean, we essentially, starting on Monday, we'd have 2 weeks and a lot of holiday time to actually put a post up, which isn't a lot of time. So, I mean, I think it's good to, I mean, I guess I'm saying my opinion too, it's good to deliberate, but I wonder what is the reality for us to pick a consultant?
I think, well, I mean, there is a lot of urgency to it. We can spend, months doing all the analysis, but I think that we probably should have an SU meeting next week, and see if we can do it next week, so we can actually have some progress made during this year before January comes and we're into another year. Because even though the schools are closed, we're all around for the most part. And certainly these, these HR people are not on a school calendar, all the time, so progress could be made.
Do we want to hear more from, to see if we could conference in or get other people to come and, I mean, I feel like reading their stuff is helpful, but having the back and forth is.
I think it would be worthwhile. I mean, now that I have some names of people that have been used within the state and been successful, it's worth hearing from some other, I think it's worth doing our due diligence.
Doing one more.
In a quick turnaround.
Right, I mean, I think this was, we did it last week and we were like, ooh, we got locals, yay. But if we've got time to, do we want to set another meeting?
No, yes, I think we do. I think
I think at least
And then
at
we,
least to try and see if we can arrange some conference calls and then plan the meeting around those, the time of those.
Yeah.
It might be possible that we could do 3.5-hour calls right now.
I think that definitely sounds good. I wonder what the openness would be to doing a little bit of back mapping from like the time we want the application to go out until from now until then, and then saying like, okay, we can have these calls within a certain amount of time. But if we are going to do, I just fear that the community visioning process, which requires community members who may go away with their families or may not be available at during the holidays, I just want to make sure that they're able to be included. In some of the timelines, it's going out like Jan 6th. So the further we push off, I think it's really important for us to get the information we need, but at the if we don't back map, I fear it's at the expense of something else.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we're going to use this for an additional week because of this.
yeah, I guess I'm looking at the calendar feeling like this week, I've basically had enough of you people.
Tomorrow's Friday.
Right, we can't warn a
We
meeting.
can't warn a meeting because Guilford's town office is
It's closed
open,
on
so we
Friday.
can't meet before Wednesday because we have an SD meeting Wednesday.
Yep.
So
I have a Vernon meeting Monday, we've got personnel Tuesday, and we've got Guilty up.
we could want a special meeting Monday for Tuesday. Yeah, it would be warned everywhere but Guilford.
We could warn a special for
For
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. Emily, how does Tuesday look for you? You can't come
No, it's
Tuesday?
fine. You can,
Tuesday, we have a PPEC meeting, but we can do it around, a different time besides PPEC.
What time is your meeting?
Let me just check here. David, do you know what time it is? Is it 7?
it's on my phone calendar. If I try to find it, I'll disconnect with you, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm trying to look on my computer.
But
Yep,
I
6
think
p.m.
I think it's 6.
You're at 6? Okay, so there's...
We don't have a space yet for it, I don't think. But we did.
But you're, okay. So
Oh, I'm sorry,
Emily,
that's on Monday, never mind. I
Yes,
can
oh, that's
do
Monday.
Yep.
This one.
okay. So Tuesday, there's a personnel committee.
No, Wednesday.
Oh, you're right, that's Wednesday. We don't have anything Tuesday. Yeah, so Tuesday is the SD meeting and then personnel first. You couldn't be there on Tuesday, though.
Oh, Wednesday's the SD.
Wednesday, yeah, sorry, Wednesday's the...
Wednesday is the school, the
The district.
District.
Yeah.
Those go too long, we can't put another.
No. Thursday? I know, it's getting late, because then I feel like the next week, we're not.
But then everybody has to meet afterwards in order.
I guess my goal would be, and Emily, I'm just gonna spitball this, tell me what you think. If there's any way that we as a committee could meet on Thursday, do another run through with anybody else we can find, and then make a decision and call an SU meeting that night, so that we can tell the SU.
How would we get the, I think that's the way to go, but how would we get the conference calls? Should we divide these vendors up and try and develop this through email, the questions for them and try and get information
So
from
we
them? How would we
can't-
do that?
We can't develop the questions out of open meeting. We can schedule out of open meeting, but any decision-making has to be done.
I think we're asking the same question we got,
Yeah,
which
well, we can
is,
do it right
can
now.
you come
Or
and do,
tonight.
well, can you give, we need a presentation. You've got your documents, but we want to talk to you, and we want to go back and forth based on what you say, which is what we've done.
Can we call you Thursday night?
Can we call you Thursday night, at this time? First of all, are you interested?
Yeah. Can you do it, yeah.
Can you do it Thursday night? Would someone like to come here? I mean, they might send someone, they might send someone. We ask, and then if
We'll
this,
just kind of,
yeah,
Mark Anderson too.
right. So we've got 3. Are there others?
I didn't come across,
Any others?
unless Windham Northeast used somebody else in Massachusetts, I didn't come across it.
Okay.
But I will reach out, I'll find out in Burlington, it's good advice.
Okay.
I was really only looking at superintendents who changed over the last year or two, but as people change in the, companies. and,
Yeah.
But I'll
So-
reach out to
Would
Burlington.
would it be possible to request RFP from these firms so that they could come back with a proposal? I mean, give a little overview of what needs to be done and then say, please provide us with an RFP by next week. And then we have everything in writing, all the financial implications, and we already have, how they go about it, since this is a generic thing, and we focus it down to what they could actually think they could do for our district. was a little confusing for me. I mean, I think Jen and Curtis were actually saying that they could be a part of the search, so, and they should be. So it's kind of like pulling everything together, but RFPs would give you a piece of paper in hand that you could make comparisons.
I'm not, I guess I'm feeling like I've got no bandwidth to write an RFP right now.
Plus, we've got really, I mean, I don't know what more they can present except their costs, more specifically than what's on the
Right.
sheets and what we get in the conference call. So
But I do think
that's one step we don't really.
Yeah,
we
but I
don't
do think
need or
calling
don't
them and
have.
explaining, this is where we're at, this is what we're looking for, we need a,
Urgency to the whole process.
yeah. But I think also, I would literally send them the notes from our last meeting, saying, here's what you're getting into. Because I think they were, pretty enlightening as to, here's what the community's looking for, here's what we're looking for, there's timeline information. But then I think just having the conversation with them and saying, what questions can I answer for you now, but can you come up with a proposal for us?
Yep. Something in written form.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Much easier.
Right, or at least more tailored for us. This is a little boilerplate, so I'd like to have, hey, here we are, we're Southern Vermont, we're this big. So I'm happy to get these two, if you want to try to get Mark.
I'll get Mark. Okay.
And what time on Thursday? Emily, what are you thinking?
I can do actually most times, like anytime after like 10.
We're gonna try and do a full SU
You
meeting
mean like
too.
10 after, no, not 10.
Well, we're gonna try and do a try and do a committee meeting followed by a full SU meeting to just make a decision and move forward.
I feel like we should. I
Yeah,
guess
think we
I
should
feel like.
do this and make a proposal
Yeah.
and get going.
And then we can contact people and say, okay, literally January 2nd, we gotta go.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And yet we'll all be here between the 19th and January 2nd to answer questions and get the ball rolling.
Thursday isn't Christmas or anything, is it?
We got time. You can have a half hour off.
That's what I thought it was.
You get, yeah.
5 days. Oh, it'll be the 17th, 19th, because today's the 12th.
Yeah.
But if you
So-
run that meeting during the day, then no staff could attend.
Why don't I doubt we do it during the day.
Okay, she had said anytime after 10.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I
Oh,
mean, how would we not? If we're gonna have 5 of them, that should be.
Well, the other problem is, most of these people will probably be able, most of the people will probably be able to talk in the evening.
right. I mean, I'm thinking, guys,
Make it work.
make it work. Let's make it work. What
Can we do
time?
5 and 6 then?
5 and 6 isn't gonna be long enough, I don't think.
You mean-
I think we're gonna
5 and
need,
7?
yeah, 5 and 7.
Yeah, well, 4:30 and, can anybody do 4:30?
Yeah, maybe that might be a little kinder to the people that are
Okay.
staying late at work to answer the phone.
All right, so we're gonna aim for 4:30. Oh, sorry.
Right, I just want to dovetail a question onto Sean's preoccupation, which is, so what are the contracting procedures for the district? If over a certain amount, you're obligated to send out an RFP.
No, not anything like construction, but nothing like this, so. If it goes over $500,000, then yes, I think for anything, but if we go over $500,000 on this, then you don't know me.
The only constraint is we have to keep the Agency of Education informed of what we're doing. We don't need permission or anything, we just need to be updated.
Any building, proceed for building something, then you have a $15,000 capital expenditure like that, but not consulting.
I'll just interject this, I'm not sure how relevant it is, but the town of Winooski, Vermont, has a reputation of being very successful in integrating a very diverse school system. So my son was up there, I just happened to pick up one of their brochures from their school district, and it was really impressive. Then they got some accolades, I can't remember exactly about, success in this. And it
Yeah,
is a very diverse community.
There's a very strong refugee resettlement program in Burlington, and Winooski is where there's places to live.
Yeah.
And there's a very robust resettlement community.
So it might be worth it just to touch bases with the superintendent there.
To
The superintendent and whatever the district is.
it's a single town.
Success in terms of diversity.
Sean McMahon.
Right, their diversity is in the student body.
Right.
58% of the students are students in college.
What was that?
That's like 58%. Somewhere there. But in terms of staff, I don't know what the staff, what that looks like staff-wise, principals and teachers and paras, et cetera. But they have a student body.
All right, so next steps, Emily, tell me if you're good with this. We're thinking Thursday, the 19th of December at 4:30 for this group, the four of us, to meet and do hopefully more interviews that we will set up. We might want to stagger them, so I might want to tell these people 4:30 and these people 5 and something like that.
Right.
Where should we have this? Because we're going to need a place. Is that the best with, to be able to call? Where should we have it so that we can, who's got the best? Phone.
The SU office probably does.
Yeah, but we can-
That's the smallest.
Conference room.
Well, yeah, I guess we had a big audience that wanted to hear the interviews.
Yeah.
Could a phone be set up in the career center?
Seems like it could be.
In the conference room?
In the Career Center?
Yes.
Okay. The Cusick room? Okay.
If it's available, I mean,
Okay, so if I talk to Barb tomorrow, like with
Yeah.
technologically wise, would that be?
It's easy.
Okay.
Anywhere, high school career center is easy.
Okay, so why don't I talk to Barb tomorrow about getting us into the Cusick room at 4:30. We'll warn a 4:30 meeting for the SSEC. We'll warn a 7 o'clock meeting for the SU.
4 o'clock or 4:30 for us?
I was doing 4:30.
4:30.
4:30 for us.
Yep.
Yep.
And Emily, I'm happy to handle all that with Barb, and she'll get in touch with you about the agenda.
Okay, that would be amazing, thank you.
Not a problem. All right, any other comments?
I was going to one more, I was going to make this comment at the last meeting, that was me. One of the things I was thinking about, if we are going to look for outside organizations, would be to use the terminology of, we want to stay at the helm, and what we need is a navigator. We want to hire a navigator. But we, as a district, we want to stay at the helm of the district and the SU.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I'm be sure to ask questions around after for the others. There's plans in terms of developing the first candidate. And critical candidates that lens of equity and education.
I think it's important to ask the question. I would like to see what they offer before we ask them, just to see if they're aware of if it's something they feature or something. Oh yeah, we can do that too.
Okay. Anything else? Did everyone sign in? And you're in charge of the clipboard.
It's okay.
There's still time.
It's the last person here, so it's still.
So, and if you've written your email on that, I will blast you again with another email.
So before we, in case I hear of somebody else, because I had thrown everything to the wind, it's okay if I,
Yes.
So like if I hear from two SUs, like, oh, we work with somebody great.
Find them.
Find them
Get 'em.
and schedule them in.
Yep.
And we can
coordinate.
We
on-
can coordinate on the,
I
right.
just
You
don't
know,
wanna-
maybe if we do like 15 minutes apart or something,
Yeah.
then if it goes long, or if we just warn them, we're gonna call you
Yeah,
between
such and such a time, yeah.
6 and 7, 5:30, whatever. Okay.
That's acceptable to the committee?
Yep.
Okay, anything else? All right. I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Carrie, for leading it.